What's going on, football fans? Harrison Graham here with another episode of Four Verts, where we talk NFL, college football, just about every single day. And on today's show, I'm going to take a look at the 10 quarterbacks in the NFL under the most pressure in 2025. We'll go from 10 to 1 here. We'll start with Kyler Murray, the Arizona Cardinals quarterback. I think sneakily, this is a pretty big year for him and for Arizona in general. Monty Ossenfort, the GM, I think has done a pretty decent job building that roster. Jonathan Gannon has these boys playing scrappy. I remember 2 years ago, they were predicted to be like the worst team in the league, and they were pretty scrappy week in and week out. Kyler Murray is more than a year moved from that knee injury he had a couple of years ago. He needs to go out there and have a consistent season. Year two of Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride is second highest paid tight end after Kittle got re-upped in San Francisco. They've got a pretty good running game. Like that, they've built the offensive line, Paris Johnson Jr., other pieces. He needs to go out there and play well. He played solid last year, but it's still a little too much of this. It's a little, one week he looks like an MVP candidate, the next week he looks average. So I think Arizona needs to threaten for a playoff spot this year. Otherwise, I think Murray could sneakily be a trade candidate next offseason if they're, just like a 7-win team this year. Okay, Bryce Young at number 9. I still don't know what to make of Bryce Young. I think he played well enough down the stretch last year to at least get this opportunity, right? To get that third year of, hey, you're our guy. Rookie year was a train wreck, coaching change. Last year started poorly, but after sitting for a month or so with Andy Dalton played better the last 7 or 8 games or so. I do think it was the right decision to give him this year to prove if he can be the long-term answer. I do think there's kind of a narrative out there that he's like established all of a sudden, which I just could not disagree with more. But I think he played well enough where his floor looked like he could be one of the worst quarterbacks we've ever seen, and now it's like, okay, like he's at least a good backup. Now the question is, can he A, be a starter, and can he B, be a really good starter? I think we'll find out this year. I don't think Carolina is loaded, but I do think they've done a pretty good job of adding pieces to that offense. They can run the football with Chuba Hubbard, obviously, as well. So let's see how it goes, and it's a big year for him to prove if he's the long-term answer or not. Okay, Trevor Lawrence at number 8. I would probably have him higher, but just given his contract and the fact that they just hired Liam Cohen, it's almost guaranteed that he's going to get at least 2 years in this situation. So it's not make or break, whereas Bryce Young plays bad in Carolina this year. They're just going to pivot next year. But I do think it's a big year just in terms of like, can this thing get back on the tracks? Can this thing get pointed in the right direction? Because I have been down on Trevor Lawrence since 2022. I thought he had a really good year that year, rallied back to beat Justin Herbert and the Chargers in that playoff game. It kind of felt like, how C.J. Stroud and the Texans feel like that fourth team right now in the AFC, chasing Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar with the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs. Kind of felt like after 2022, maybe the Jags are that team, right? Like they're going to be the team that enters the fray. But instead it's been Houston, who's not quite in that top tier, but they're kind of the next team. Jacksonville's just fallen off. T-Law's had some injuries. When he has played, he hasn't played that well. He's gone through a lot of different coaching situations, but they brought in Liam Cohen for a reason because he had Baker Mayfield playing some really good ball last year. So it's a big year for Trevor to get things pointed back arrow up, if you will. Are you a Trevor Lawrence believer? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I would lean no right now, but I also was a big believer in his talent coming out of Clemson, so I still think there's a world where this works, but this is a massive year for that to end up being the case. Okay, Jordan Love at number 7. Similar to Trevor in the sense of, unless it's just embarrassing this year, like he's probably at least got multiple years of being the starter in Green Bay, just given the contract and how much they've invested and so on and so forth. But I do think it's fair to say that it's still relatively unclear how good Love is. His good is really good, but his bad is also pretty bad. I thought at times last year he played like a backup, where he's just indecisive, airmailing guys. He's had just this weird career where they draft him, and then Aaron Rodgers rips off a couple of MVPs, so it kind of stunts his development and when he's going to be the guy. And then his first year as the starter, it looked bad for 2 months, but then the last 2 months, he looked unbelievable, looked like an MVP candidate, gets paid that huge contract, really based on like an 8-game sample size. And last year, I thought he was just middle of the road, right? Like if you told me, hey, Jordan Love was the 16th best quarterback, I'd say, yeah, the price sounds about right. Well, he's making $55 million a year. Got to be at least a top 10 guy. So we'll see if he can get back closer to that heater he was on the second half of 2023. I don't think that level of play is sustainable, but it's got to be closer to that than what we saw last year. Okay, Justin Herbert at number 6. I'm not selling any of my Herbert stock, but I also will acknowledge, I think you got to win a playoff game this year. But I also think if we're all being fair and objective, the Chargers were ahead of schedule last year. They made the playoffs because Jim Harbaugh just knows how to win games. But Justin Herbert, in fairness, once they got to the playoffs, even though they overachieved to get there, he played terrible. He was awful in that game against Houston. He threw 4 picks, was airmailing guys. It was just bad. Needs to win a playoff game. I think this Harbaugh-Herbert combination will work. Like, if you ask me today, do I think they've got some deep playoff runs in their future? I do. I do think that is absolutely going to happen, but you're playing in the tough AFC West with Mahomes and the Chiefs and Sean Payton and those boys coming up as well. Maybe the best defense in the league in Denver. Big year for Herbie. He's got there's a big contingent of people that are selling stock because of his playoff lack of success. So be a nice time to win a playoff game this year. If you want more NFL content for free as we get into our top 5 quarterbacks under pressure this year, hit that subscribe button. We're doing all kinds of different videos this offseason as we await for training camps to get here. So be sure to lock us in here on 4 Verts. Okay, number 5, Josh Allen. I just think with Allen and the next guy we're going to get to, at this point, it's just the pressure's on every year to break through and get to that Super Bowl and ideally win that Lombardi trophy. It's Super Bowl or bust. He's done everything else you can do. He's won the MVP finally last year. He has played well in the playoffs, which is why the pressure's slightly less on him compared to the next guy we're going to talk about. Allen has done his part. I think their playoff shortcomings more so have been on some coaching things. The defense has let them down. But the reality is he can't beat Mahomes in the playoffs. So until he does, the pressure is going to be on him and the Bills to deliver. And we'll see if this is the year they can do it. Lamar Jackson, same deal. Now, Lamar finally played pretty well in the playoffs last year, but he still did have 2 turnovers against Buffalo, which was the difference in that game. I actually thought for the course of that game, the Ravens, and especially as the game went on, and Lamar felt like the better team and quarterback than the Bills and Josh Allen, but the mistakes early by Lamar were too much to overcome, and then obviously Mark Andrews has a couple of mistakes down the stretch, and they ran out of time. Is Lamar ready to take that next step? Again, I thought last year for the first time their exit out of the playoffs wasn't like, well, Lamar shit the bed again. Again, a couple mistakes, but it wasn't because he just completely did not show up. So maybe he's more comfortable as a playoff player. Sometimes it takes guys longer than others. And listen, if you're Lamar Jackson, if you're Josh Allen, the only thing you're playing for at this point is getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl because it's the only thing you haven't accomplished. You've won MVPs. You've been all pros. You're going to the Hall of Fame. Like they've both already booked their ticket to Canton, in my opinion. Now it's about chasing all-time great status, right? Because it's hard to be an all-time great without a Super Bowl. I don't think people talk about Dan Marino as an all-time great because he doesn't have that Super Bowl, when in reality, he's probably one of the 3 or best throwers of the football in the history of the NFL. So Allen, Lamar, it's about taking down Mahomes, getting to a Super Bowl, and ultimately winning one. Who is under more pressure, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen? Type LJ for Lamar, JA for Josh Allen. Give us your thoughts in the comments. Okay, JJ McCarthy at number 3. I think this is a little unfair. But here's the reality. Sam Darnold had a big-time season last year, but he flamed out and they lost in the playoffs, and instead of paying him, they let him go. That allowed them to rebuild their offensive line a little bit on the interior. They signed a couple of defensive tackles in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. Their roster is loaded. And I do think you're going to see narratives and conversations that are probably unrealistic. Like, Is J.J. McCarthy going to throw for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns? That would be pretty shocking. He has not taken a single snap in the NFL. But Vikings fans are going to look at this, and people across the NFL are going to say, let's say 6 weeks in, the Vikings are 3-3, and JJ's just kind of up and down. You're going to hear chatter of, should they have re-signed Sam Darnold? Should they? Like, that's just the reality of this situation, because they had a guy until week 18 in the playoff game last year, played like a top 5 quarterback last year. That's what Sam Darnold did. So I think it's unrealistic. I think it's unfair. But the topic is QB's under the most pressure. J.J. McCarthy is under a ton of pressure. People in the national media are saying they should be a Super Bowl contender, even though he hasn't taken a snap in the NFL. That's how loaded this roster is. So, I'm going to try to be more reasonable when evaluating him, because it's tough to place those expectations. But the pressure is the pressure, and the pressure is on J.J. McCarthy, no question about it. Dak Prescott at number 2. I think whoever the Cowboys quarterback is always under a lot of pressure. They're always in the spotlight. I saw the other day, Get Up was talking about Dak Prescott's legacy. We're in the middle of the NBA Finals, and there's other NFL storylines going on. It's just the reality of having that star on your helmet. And look, Dak has battled injuries in 2 of the last 4 years. They moved on from Mike McCarthy. They're banking on this Brian Schottenheimer situation, and for Dak to elevate his game even further, they got him George Pickens. CeeDee Lamb is in the fold. And on top of all that, he's the highest paid player in NFL history at $60 million per year. Like, that's pressure. That's a lot of pressure. And he's set that pressure on himself. He said, look, I just want to win a Super Bowl. He said it recently. So can Dak deliver? I think he's taken a lot of unnecessary flack, but I think it's also fair that he's been a pretty underwhelming playoff quarterback for the most part. And that's when you make your hay, when you take a look at someone's legacy and when they're done in the NFL. It's why we were harsh on Lamar for all those years. He's been bad in the playoffs. Well, last year he played better, and now it's about taking that next step. For Dak, can they get into the playoffs? Could he play well? Could they get to an NFC Championship game? I have my doubts this year. I don't know if they're good enough roster-wise, but can he control what he control and play well? Like Josh Allen, and if his team lets him down, his team lets him down. I think Dak certainly can still change some narratives around his career. At the number 1, again, kind of like J.J. McCarthy. I think it's going to be a little bit unfair, but I do think it's real. I think it's Caleb Williams with the Bears. Anytime you're the number 1 pick, you're going to face a lot of pressure, especially in a big market like Bryce Young in Carolina. If it doesn't work out, don't get me wrong, he's going to get that bust label. It's going to be viewed as a failure. End of the day, it's Carolina. It's pretty rare for a team like the Chicago Bears to have the number 1 pick in the first place, a big market team, and then take a guy who was considered the undisputed number 1 pick for 2 years with all these glowing remarks. And if it doesn't work out, that's going to be viewed as a massive failure. Now, I think Caleb did some good things in his rookie year. He dealt with crazy circumstances, the Eberflus situation, Shane Waldron, a bad offensive line. But he's got the pressure of being the number 1 pick, and the Bears have invested heavily in him this offseason. They go from Matt Eberflus to Ben Johnson. They get all-pro Joe Thuney. They sign the best center on the market in Drew Dahlman. They add Jonah Jackson. They draft Colston Loveland and Luther Burton. They've still got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze in the fold. Like, they've done almost everything you could do other than maybe adding another premier running back to load up around Caleb this year. And look, I think the story is old and expired, and Caleb handled it well and everything, but that ESPN thing didn't help either with the pre-draft stuff coming out. So the pressure's on him. By the way, he and J.J. McCarthy play each other week 1. The loser of that game is probably leading the national shows the next week of, what's wrong with J.J. McCarthy? What's wrong with Caleb Williams? Did they draft the wrong quarterback? That's life in the NFL, and especially when Jaden Daniels had the year that he had last year in Washington. And not a great on-paper situation, especially from a roster talent standpoint. So, big year for Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. I do think in both their cases they'll get through 2026 regardless, but that does not mean the pressure is not on. It absolutely is. Okay, which quarterback is under the most pressure in 2025? Give me your thoughts in the comment section of this video. We appreciate it. If you made it this far in the video, that makes you a real one. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. That way you know exactly when we publish content here on 4 Verts.